All right, we're going to start this series. We had some technical difficulty getting Ryan on here. I apologize about that. He was operating on his computer, not his phone, trying to be as disconnected as possible. So we're going to get him invited here. We're going to get him. Come, you're live. All right, here we go. All right, Ryan, we got you in here.
Wow. All right, here we go.
All right.
So,
Right. So I never anticipated having to tell you that you'd have to be on your phone. Uh I love that you're off Instagram and have the Instagram app deleted off your phone for the month of January, but I didn't anticipate. I'm glad we talked through that. I'm glad we worked it out. I appreciate you joining.
thanks for the tech setup advice. I appreciate it.
Absolutely, absolutely. No, I'm sorry it took so long. I should have realized that should have been the first question I asked. Although we run basically an Instagram account as part of our business, I have a separate phone so that I can keep Instagram off of my personal phone, which is very helpful. So I can relate to wanting Instagram off your phone.
Yep, that's my jam.
Very understandable. Very understandable. We'll have to make it a damp January. So, yeah, I am sorry for the technical difficulties. Anyone who joined us on the first couple iterations of this, but we got Ryan going now. We're going to record this. We're going to share it on the page. Um, Ryan is a graduate of our program. He started with us in prehab. He just reached a year post-op, achieved above 99% symmetry on all testing to return to sport. That's hop testing, strength testing, every other form of testing you can think of. This guy crushed it. Kilograms per body weight or Newton meters per kilogram body weight. So that's his quad strength compared to his body weight. Were off the charts, on par with professional athletes who return to sports successfully. So I could talk about Ryan all day because he did such an amazing job with us and put in a ton of work with us. But I'm going to let him kind of introduce himself. So welcome, Ryan. I appreciate you joining with us. If you could tell us just a little bit about yourself, your background, kind of like you did in our original call. Yeah, background as a college athlete, growing up, sports, where you live, where you're from, what you do. Go ahead.
Yeah. Well, first, thanks for setting this up. It's exciting, and love to talk about now the other side of the process. So I've been on both ends, so to come out of it, super exciting. But yeah, I'm Ryan Laboy. I've been working with Tommy now for what, a year and change, going back to prehab for my degree. So my background is just a lifelong athlete. Played football, baseball, basketball growing up. Played college, working out 5 to 7 days a week, the season. And after life was over, kind of that to just other recreational sports. So I played softball, baseball, pick up basketball, took up skiing, and my first love. 100 days a year, multiple years, and mountain biking, running, you name it, just really throughout the whole year. So originally from California, grew up in China, so coastal, and now my family's here in Mexico. So yeah, busy here. We have 2 kids. We have an almost year-old next month, and then we have a 5-month-old. So through this whole crazy leg process, we all had children. So that's been another, I think, just testament to this program, being able to work around just life as a dad. That's my background, going to the program October 2023.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. So some pretty impressive and high level stuff in there that obviously, like you mentioned, college baseball at a high level. Then when I remember when you started with us, skiing 100 days a year, working out all the time, mountain biking, just doing everything that you do in the snow bowl in Arizona.
Yep.
I remember when you first started with us. being like, yeah, I got a newborn, and then we saw that right on through to the second kid being born, and myself having a kid as
Dude,
well. So we had a lot. We had a very eventful year together.
we've been
Um,
busy. Exactly.
but yeah, I think one of the things I really want to hit on because, like we said, you're someone who's obviously a high level athlete. Can you talk a little bit about how you tore your ACL and what that experience was like? And just from my perspective, the high level overview of that is that you were doing really well. You know, you had a torn ACL. You didn't know it for a period of time. You were a good enough athlete that you were able to compensate. You were able to go back to your, gym routine and able to kind of get by with that. And then, but still you realize there was something, that could be more. And you're the type of person who wants to maximize what you can do. And that led you to starting with all an ACL 3 months pre-op, which made a tremendous difference almost at a level that I think you didn't know you had that you could get to. So if you could talk a little bit about that too, I think just realizing, how good you thought you were doing and how much better you were able to do just from the pre-op perspective.
Yeah, totally. I mean, I feel like I was in a different position than people where I never had any issues, never was, a serious injury athlete. Escaped through the first 35 years of my life surgery. And here I was at our local ski resort last January, so 2024, and sorry, 2023, so 2 years ago, and just weird fall. I kind of landed on weight on one leg, and something felt bad, but I didn't hear that, that popular pop that everybody hears. That's kind of the telling sign. So I was able to kind of get myself on the mountain, go ski that weekend for 3 or 4 days. I didn't have the swelling or any real indications that it was a death. Um, I went and saw an in-person PT here locally. They kind of did all the, Lockman's and all the different ligament tests. They didn't think anything was really torn, just be really stretched out. The weird thing for me, I had January through about August, I was doing my normal sport. I played like adult league baseball, but still able to move side to side and make athletic movements. I was able to run, problem, mountain bikes. It was a weird instance where I was actually playing, and I just squatted down to get the ball and just felt something on the inside of my knee just completely fire. And I'd never had that sensation even after that ball. And so after that, there months went by when it didn't feel right, but I also didn't want to get the news that I had. But after doing times, doctor, and you know, immediately the orthopedic surgeon here in town said, "Yep, you got no ACL, dude. I think you also did something in your meniscus." And, the MRI came back, complete ACL rupture, medial meniscus, left leg. What I did was just have really strong quads, strong through activity, and my meniscus was acting as a band-aid together. In so after about a year, 10 months or so, just hang on this injury, finally, made the decision to have surgery. And luckily for me, I was still functioning by day to day. I was able to just carry on my normal life with a 9-month-old at the time. So, fortunately and unfortunately, one of my best friends in town also went through an ACL tear and saw me before I turned me onto the program. And I'm so happy I did. But I had 3 months to really hard and just get as strong as I could into surgery. So that kind of led us to start working together pre-op.
Yeah, and can you talk about Ryan? Because I mean, first off, obviously, just a testament to what an athlete you are and how strong you were. That you were doing all those things, like you said, running, golfing, playing rec league, baseball, softball, continue to ski, doing all those things without an ACL. But talk a little bit about what your workouts look like, because I remember when I first talked to you, you were like, "Yeah, I'm working out, I'm squatting, I'm deadlifting, I'm doing all
Yeah,
these things." Talk a little bit about what that was like before you started with us, because I think you were in a position that a lot of people would think, "Hey, I'm doing great going into prehab. I wouldn't need something like this." Fortunately for you, as you said, you had a friend who had gone through all ACL with us and did amazing. She has her own unique story of why how she found prehab. We'll be talking to her at a later date. But yeah, her experience was, kind of what led you to be like, hey, maybe there is more I could do. But talk about how well you were doing from a gym perspective.
totally. Once once I hurt myself, I bliss and I did what I know now, and just continue my normal routine, running every day through, really trail runner when the weather like no issues there. But once I found out what was wrong, kind of tweaked my workout to favor my knee. That's anything else more. But then I think we started working together in the prehab space, really got back into squatting, knee extensions, which are love of my life. So, Michelle, my wife, we're married now, and really focus onto that injury where maybe I was working with you in the program. Hey, you can even before going into surgery. All the supporting ligaments and muscles all around your knee and your entire leg is only going to benefit you if you're as strong as you are going into surgery. So I kind of changed from being a little bit hesitant as, I don't want to mess it up, but look, there wasn't anything up to then focus, all right, how can we thing around this knee getting as strong as I the surgery.
Yeah, and that's a great point. And I think that's talk about some of the numbers you were throwing up prehab in terms of squatting and deadlifting. I know they weren't quite as good as what we were doing post-op, but
Yeah.
yeah, talk about the type of numbers you were able to put up with the torn ACL, with the torn meniscus, in just 3 months of
Yeah.
prehab.
I guess I will caveat this by that was kind of my job in college. So like 4 days a week, lifting heavy and 20-year-old, but then 5-year-olds, and I was putting, you know, weight that was pretty similar to college. So, repping 225 on barbell squat, deadlifting like 315, even more, maybe up to like 3 time. Then leg extension, getting up to, 150 range pre-surgery.
Yeah. Yeah. Those numbers are squatting 225 for reps, deadlifting, in the 300s. Yeah, and just crazy numbers on the knee extension machine. Um, and I think that's such an important point that people miss, right? A lot of times, or exactly what you said, right? Like you were doing pretty well, you were able to run, you were able to, to golf, to play softball, but once you got that diagnosis, you're like, hey, I better be cautious, right?
Yep.
And what I always say is I'm not here to blindly recommend aggression, right? We don't just say, hey, you're fine, you can do it, right? You can further injure your meniscus, you can further injure your knee, your cartilage, pre-operatively, right? It's not, it's not a guarantee, right? But there's safe ways to load, right? And controlled progressive overloading can make a tremendous difference. And one of the things we talk about is that being overly cautious, sometimes people think like, hey, better safe than sorry. You can't go wrong being safe, right? You can't go wrong being cautious. But then you're going to have expectations of how you're going to want things to go post-operatively, right?
Yep.
And being really cautious pre-operatively becomes really aggressive post-operatively if you're not prepared for the things you want to do. And that's really a critical point where, the better athlete you are, the more you're able to compensate where, hey, you were probably running at a notable quad deficit, right?
Yeah.
That doesn't mean your quads weren't strong, right? You're a strong athlete, but the minute you have that injury and that ACL is torn, and then subsequently, if you have a torn meniscus, you have swelling, that shuts your muscles down, right? So like you said, have a background of lifting when you were a college athlete, and I've worked out since. You have a ton of potential in your legs where you have a lot of muscle fibers, right? But the injury, the pain, the swelling is going to shut down your ability to activate all of those muscle fibers. If you don't re-recruit those and take yourself through a clear program that kind of rebuilds your ability to work at the level you're working before, those cells are going to stay dormant. It's going to be very hard to reactivate them. It's not saying it can't be done, but it's just they're shut down from the injury. And then if you don't rebuild them back up, they're going to get shut down all over again from the surgery and the nerve block. And you're really starting, trying to climb a mountain, from sea level, right? Instead of at least if you prehab, you're starting at ground level. And I think that's a critical point that people don't realize that, hey, and you're a great example of it, right? You were squatting, deadlifting, running, jumping, playing sports, but you weren't as strong as you used to be. And that's what's missing because, being quote unquote strong is different than being as strong as you're used to be. And for you, if you're not feeling that, you're always going to be searching for that, right?
Totally.
And I think that's a really critical point of, that people don't realize just what a difference prehab can make. So, what we do with All in ACL, and I think one of the things, a misconception sometimes people have is that seeking out additional help almost feels like, why do I need that? Why do you need this? Where, you're someone who probably would have done fine with traditional PT alone, right? So talk about that for you. I think about, what made you feel like, hey, you know what, you probably would have been fine with traditional PT and done, quote unquote normal. What made you want more than that?
Totally, man. That's another great point of you hear so many stories. And I mean, I went down the rabbit hole of, oh man, I'm injured. Now what? How many other people have gone through this? You see and you hear the pro athletes on TV and they come back within a year. I mean, just this weekend, Saquon Barkley, he tore his ACL to shreds and comes back just like an alien from another planet. But that's not the typical person who goes through this injury and comes back. So I feel like I saw so many stories of people going through this injury, going through a recovery just to get back to being able to walk again, right? That's a huge milestone. And for me, I wanted to come back better than I was before and have no limitations, no hesitations in anything that I do going forward, whether whether it would be chasing my kids around, coaching sports in a few years, skiing down all the mountains that I ski down. I went into this program and went into this surgery coming out on the other end better than I was before. So that's really what my main goal was. And yeah, I could always get back and, just be able to just jog around. But my end goal was to come back with literally no hiccups in my life and hopefully better than before.
Yeah, that's a great point, and I think we have a lot of people like you and your friend who you mentioned referred you, same type of person, right? It was like, hey, I'm not going to settle for just
Yep.
being okay, right? I'm not going to settle for a statistic, right? And yeah, a lot of people point to pro athletes. Saquon, is a great one. Adrian Peterson is another one, right? That people always remember. Came back, 6 months post op and ran for 2,000 yards the next year, right? But the reality is, the statistics bear out that only 55% of people get back to sport at the same level or higher. So that means 45% of people don't, right?
Yep.
And the same research paper said that 88% of people expect to get back to sport at the same level or higher, right? So that's a massive mismatch in what people expect going into the surgery and what the reality is, right? And I think you put in a level of work and a level of guidance that I think is abnormal, right? It's not what everyone does, right? But you wanted a result that was abnormal, right? And I think
Totally.
fortunately, as people learn more and more, this is becoming more commonplace, and it's becoming something that people recognize. What a big deal this injury is, right? And yeah, talk a little bit about, for you, what were some of your, obviously you had the advantage of learning from someone who went through this with us, but what were some of your hesitations with joining All in ACL? Yeah, what were maybe some reservations you had?
Yeah, I mean, I think this goes back to your earlier point of, most people just kind of get to a certain level and then that's it. And then they just carry on with where they're at for the rest of their lives. And I think a lot of it is just, the in-person care that we can afford is, a certain amount of visits to a PT, and that's kind of what you're stuck with. And I think with this program is just working in conjunction with that, but then it just goes so far and beyond, you know, your insurance runs out and your visits are done. Well, look, I've had 9 months post in-person PT to improve my situation. So I think that's definitely been the caveat to get me to where I am today. So I definitely want to touch on that point.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And talk about because we've worked with your in-person PT, through a number of clients, and I have actually referred your in-person PT to a number of clients who are local to that area. But obviously, you joined while you're still in-person PT, and that's what a lot of our clients do, and most of our clients do. And what we recommend, right? We don't say, hey, wait
Mm-hmm.
until you're done with in-person PT. Talk about how, despite having a very good in-person PT, what do you feel was the difference with this that made it worth it for you and made a difference for you?
Yeah, totally. I think the thing for me, I love structure in my life. I think it's just from the organized sports background, right? Specific schedules, know what to do every day. So when you just go and see an in-person PT, it's what, maybe once a week, maybe twice a week. And then there's always a gray area of, okay, I've done my exercises. What else do I do today? Or, oh, I have 2 weeks until I see him again, him or her again. What do I do for 2 weeks, before I go back to my next visit? So I think the thing that I love with your program is there's no question. You have something to do every day throughout, if it's early on, you have multiple different programs, whether it be range of motion and strength, flexibility. You're constantly testing and checking your progress, and it's just amazing that I could turn on an app and I can look at exactly what I need to do today, schedule my day around it, schedule my gym time, schedule my home time with my kids, and have really no questions of what I needed to do that day to get better. And I mean, what, a year and 6 months later, it's still to the day, I have no questions about what needs to be done that day to get better. And I think that helped me get through pretty much every single day with like a positive attitude and just gearing up to know I have something to do today to get better.
Yeah, that's such a great point, like you said about the positive attitude. Because one thing we hear from people, from ACLers specifically, that we hear all the time is the mental side of this recovery, right? And I think there's,
Totally.
I want you to talk a little bit about your experience on that side. But you are a very positive guy, right? And I think, that can work both ways for people, where the mental side is very real, right? But we talk to a lot of people who feel. Confidence has almost become a buzzword in ACL rehab, right? And I think you are someone who, because you're so strong, because you're a good athlete, could have almost gotten tricked into being like, you're lacking confidence. You got to work on your confidence, right? But because we were testing you at every level,
Mm-hmm.
it was like, hey, you're super strong, but you're still 75% as strong as the other side, right? You
Yep.
were passing what is the research backed criteria for raw strength numbers on your surgical side in terms of body weight, but you were still only 75% the strength of your surgical side, right?
Yep.
And of your non-surgical side. That, what we see a lot is that someone who's then told, you'll get used to it. You got to work on your confidence, right? But they don't have those numbers, right? And I think
Yeah.
a lot of times that structure seems to really lift the mental burden of uncertainty that people have of, am I doing too much? Am I doing too little? Am I not doing enough? And that, sometimes we work on our mental side, but it's coming from the physical, right? And that's not to say there's
Totally.
not a mental side, but we talk to a lot of people who are really motivated high achievers who lose motivation because they lack clarity. So talk a little bit about how the mental side was for you and kind of how that, dovetailed with the physical side.
Totally. I mean, it is such a huge mental burden to take on, right? It's a big surgery, one of the biggest you can have. There's it's a tough surgery, right? So a lot of people can go two ways, right? They can kind of wallow and be super sad and, oh man, my life's never going to be the same. Or the direction I took is, all right, this is just a speed bump. This is right? The setup is just or a setback is just a setup for a comeback. So that's kind of the position I took, and it's something that I needed to go through to get back healthy, to be back to my normal self, man. So I try to keep a positive attitude the entire process. I will never forget the day I got my MRI results back. I was at our park. I was in a beautiful setting, positive mind. And I opened that paper and it's just complete ACL rupture. My heart just sank. And that was one of the worst bits of news I ever got because I've always been healthy and I've never had to go through something like that. But knowing that I could come out of the other side better, I think that was my mental approach is like, you could feel sorry for yourself. You could be sad every day, or you could be determined. You can be positive. You could take every little win, which is kind of what my mentality was the whole time, and build on those. And then in a year, 6 months post surgery, you're going to have a lot of big wins and you're going to be in a really good place before, before it's all said and done.
Yeah. No, well, that's a great point, and I think finding the right balance of positivity, but also recognizing what you need to be successful, right? Not just blind positivity and being like, "Hey, this is going to go well," right? But you invested in yourself, you invested time, you invest finances, you said, "Hey, what do I need to be successful?" You looked around and looked at what are the people who are being successful, right? And one of the things we talk about a lot is that people find themselves being caught saying, "Hey, trust the process, trust the process, trust the process," and I always push back against that because I hate that phrase, right? The 76ers haven't won a championship with that phrase, yes, right? But trust the process. I think you should understand the process and you should feel free to question that process. And being asked to blindly have faith in the process is, I think, what leads people to a lot of the mental struggles that they have. And I think for you, you recognized what a big deal this was. You attacked it head on. And I think you hit on another key point. Like you said, former college athlete. You're, in your 30s. One kid at the time of the injury. Second kid on the way, or a second kid, later on. A lot of people, this injury can almost be a crossroads for them, right? Especially when it happens in your 30s and even your 40s, right? Where you say, I had that knee injury and I was never the same, right? I kind of gave up on that. Or it can be where you build a brick foundation that you stand on, that you say, like, hey, now I'm 35, 45, 55, and I'm still skiing, I'm still coaching, I'm still running around, I'm still that same athletic person I was, and I built habits that last me a lifetime. And I think that's a key thing that you did in using this as a kind of springboard to really stand on and get back to, like you said, lifting in ways that you hadn't necessarily done previously since college.
Yep, totally.
Tell me this, talk a little bit about your experience, because obviously, hey, what we do is outside of insurance-based traditional PT, requires an investment in yourself. And I think sometimes people as new parents almost feel like, is that something I, should be doing? Is it like, am I being selfish? I'd rather put it towards my kids' sports. I'd rather, talk about for you as a new parent, why it was still important for you to spend time in the gym, to spend, finances on getting back to where you were. And yeah, how you felt like that investment in yourself was an investment in your kids.
Totally. I mean, we looked at it as it's an investment in my future, right? Not just my future, my family's future. Not something that I wanted to go through and be in pain my whole life, or be hesitant and not go play with the kids in 5 years because dad's knee could pop and he might have to call an ambulance. So I think that's how we looked at it. And our lives are very active, and that's what we want to pass on to our kids. And I think the investment that we put into that will now, reap the benefits for the next, I don't know, 80 years, hopefully, and not have that, you know, in the back of your mind, like, oh man, I can't do this. I'm hesitant. I don't want to get hurt again. But, I don't want to run around with a dog and the dog runs into me and I'm hurt. I'm stuck in the woods. And that's kind of like our main determining factor. And just getting healthy again was kind of my number one mission. So, we're fortunate we were able to work with you, and the finances worked. But the other side is, you only go through a certain amount of rehab in person or with insurance, and then what do? You're just on your own. So I think it was Obviously it was a great decision to work together, and just very lucky and fortunate that we could.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that's a great point that you make of like, hey, for you recognizing what an investment this is, like, you have two young children, right? Under three,
Yep,
and you look ahead and say, hey, I want to coach them when they're 9, when they're 10, 11, 12.
exactly.
I want to ski with them when they're 25,
Yep,
like when they're adults. And I think that's something that, one of the things we've seen, and they've actually done studies on this, that the number one predictor of children who grow up to have fitness as a main part of their life is having parents who have fitness as a main part of their life. No physical education class, no, being signed up for sports. It's having that modeled for you, that carving out time for your fitness and staying active is an important thing that you do as an adult, and kids see that and model that. And I
exactly.
think
Yep.
that's one of the things, we really, for us, we work with a lot of people. I think a lot of times in the ACL world, there's a big focus on college athletes, high school athletes, and obviously we're passionate about that. But I think a lot of times the 25 to 35, 25 to 45 is really the group of people who are the most underserved in this, because they can almost feel like, I can't carve out that. I'm running my kids to different places. I got young kids. I can't carve out that time for myself. But it's you're robbing your kids of a future, future with an active parent, with a fit parent, with someone who's going to be able to run around, get on the floor with them, and coach their teams. And I think that's a great way to look at it, because that is really the trade-off in not making the time for yourself now.
Completely. And I feel like every family has to look in the mirror and decide what kind of family they want to be. And that was our decision. We're all super active and healthy, and this was kind of the supplement that we needed to all of us being healthy again.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then also, like, to touch on that, there was times throughout the whole year where we're on family vacation, or hey, kids are out of school this week, I can't get to the gym as much. So it's been amazing that you are able to, like, boom, jump on the app, kind of customize the program for that week, for that day, what have you. Oh, I'm sick, it's kids brought home something from daycare. There was never a time throughout this whole process that I didn't trust that you were going to be there to help me tweak a program, and not fall behind. You're always there to help and make sure I had what I needed.
Yeah, no, that's a great point, and I'm glad you brought that up, because that's something I feel like, hey, listen, I've been that, and what I always like to say, we work through this model. Obviously, you're in Arizona, where I was in New York when we started. We just moved, just outside the city when we had the baby. So, we're in the New York City area, right? And we operate through this model for a reason, right? Even our clients in New York City, in Jersey, we operate through this model for a reason, and it's because when I was a young clinician in residency, and even specializing in ACL rehab after, I was like, this kind of doesn't work. It like, really, even if you're in a great clinic, even if you're doing all the right things, you have a great therapist, it's kind of like you said, like, look at your life over the last year. It's like, you had holidays, you got sick, you guys traveled, you had family vacation, you had things that came up, you had setbacks, you had a kid, all of those things happened, and your rehab moved forward because we
Exactly.
were able to make adjustments, and you weren't saying, shit, I have this laundry list of exercises, but now I just had a baby, and I'm staying out of the gym this week because I don't want to get them sick, or I'm spending a little bit more time at home. How do I adjust this? And that's what I found, that, like, the people who have this injury are basically ages 15 to 45. Those are some of the busiest years of your life, where you're traveling for weddings, going off to school, traveling for work, having kids, and shit always came up, right? And like you said, when you would try to have the visits, it would always be like, oh, something came up. Things didn't go according to plan. Things didn't do it the way I wanted to do it. And then we were just starting over, right? Versus, I remember, when your baby was born, us building you a different plan and saying, okay, what's realistic for you? Instead of trying to fit a protocol into your life, we built what you needed into your life so that you still move forward. You move through a run progression, during that time, even if we were saying, hey, it's 2 to 2.5 days a week.
Yep, totally. I mean, it's funny. I think my text messages or WhatsApp messages are my wife, Tommy, and I don't know, maybe my parents. But
Yeah.
going into labor and delivery, we texted our parents, and then it was Tommy. It's like, hey, dude, I'm gonna be in the delivery room the next couple days, and tweak the program. So I think I was doing like one-legged squats while I was in the delivery room waiting for the baby. So
Yeah.
we worked through it.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. No, and I think that's the real, you're still living life during this rehab, right? And I think that's a critical thing too, that like, we talked about, you put in a ton of work, right? You really dedicated, a year, a little over a year. You spent 15 months with us. So, just under a year and a half of your life to this, but you still lived, right? You still did a lot of things. It was, you
Totally.
fit it for your life. It's not this, it's not football camp in high school. It's managing this for your real life. One thing I really want to touch on too, because one of the things we talk about a lot is people who start early with us, right? And what an opportunity that is. And in a way, you are an example of what All in ACL has become and is growing into, where people who used to work with us used to be one of two cases. They would be someone who started later on after they'd struggled. So they started
Mm-hmm.
3-4 months where they were like, I didn't realize what a big deal this injury was. I'm struggling, I'm swollen, I'm painful, I don't feel confident. And they start with us later on.
Yep.
Or someone who starts with us right away because this is their second, third, or fourth re-injury.
Sure.
You're someone who is kind of this second wave of people who now, as we've grown, have learned from others and learned from others' experiences. And what we always say is we're able to minimize setbacks much better when someone starts with us early. Instead of putting the toothpaste back in the tube, so to speak, we're able to handle issues as they arise, right? Now, what that doesn't, it doesn't mean, hey, there's never pain, there's never setbacks, there's never things that we deal with, right? Can you talk a little bit about that? Because I think that's almost a misconception that people don't recognize that. To me, one of the models of this not being able, one of the best parts of this is not just being able to adjust for your life, but adjusting for responses to programming that inevitably come up, right? And that's not to say that a negative response should be avoided at all costs, right? Because you could only find the line if you work up to it, right? And we did that with you a number of times, but it's about quickly intervening and adjusting. So talk a little bit about, those couple experiences where we had setbacks, how we overcame them, and still kept you obviously, back to passing everything in just under a year.
Yeah. Yeah, totally. I mean, even though we did start pre-surgery and prehab for 3 months, it's not like I skipped every, speed bump or swelling or anything post-surgery. So it just got me to a level where I would have been stronger than if we didn't work together going into surgery. But then coming on the other side, I still had shit. I had bad days, couldn't get off the couch. There were nights I couldn't sleep. Oh, I did something. My knee swelled up. I got text Tommy, is this right? Oh my, all the wheels start turning, right? And oh my God, did I hurt myself? Did I do this too early? Did I go too heavy? So the whole time, yeah, I, I don't know if I'd clarify them as setbacks, but just, kind of the peaks and valleys of a rehab. And you don't know where the line is, like you said, unless you kind of toe it. So even though I feel great, we go try something new and kind of expand on the program, try heavier weight, try new moves or something, and holy crap, my knee ballooned up the next day, or it was super sore and I couldn't move. And then now that kind of just knows us, all right, this is the next plateau we have to get over. So completely, man, it's not like we worked together before surgery, so then it was just a breeze after. It just was, it set me up in a better place coming out of surgery.
Yeah.
Still, right? That perfect analogy, I think you might have sent it to me, but the rehab just looks like a mountain pass,
Yeah.
up and down, up and down. It's not just continuously going up or downhill. So
Yeah.
I think I really utilize that in my rehab.
Yeah. No, and that I think what we always say is, hey, there's data points in this, right? And every day is a data point.
Mm-hmm.
Um, we want the trend line going up, and your trend line always was, right? But I remember when we first started barbell squatting and you were like, fuck yeah, this is awesome. And you
It
went
was easy. Yeah.
95, 135, 225. And then we were able to be like, okay, that was too quick. We have to dial that back. We have to get your joint under control.
Yep.
We're going to keep it at, 95 for 3 weeks, 135 for 3 weeks, and make sure we evaluate that joint response, right? And in a way,
Exactly.
because you were so strong, we're always looking at your form and we're monitoring how you look and that you're loading into your surgical side. And you were doing all those things, but you were so strong that and this happens to people, and it's surprising that your muscles can be ahead of your joint,
Mm-hmm.
where your joint was responding negatively to an amount of load that your muscles, were for the most part able to do, but it was too much overall for your joint. And we have to listen to that, right? And I think that's the key difference that A, we're able to do through this model, and B, that we really try to make sure it's a difference that, like you said, it's not, we don't let a bump in the road become a setback, right?
Totally.
It's because it's not that you'll never have a negative response to the workout, it's the adjustment. And that's the key that, hey, your knee responded, we have to listen to that, we have to respect that. We don't say, hey, we mapped out a plan and stick to the plan, trust the process, right? It's about how'd you respond, how'd you adapt, and what do we do? And for you, we even had that going through the run progression where we had to dial that back. We had it in return to sport, right? Where we're working on single limb jumping, deceleration training, but you have a high level of single limb power you wanted to get back to, right?
Mm-hmm.
So for us to be able to get you that, we have to train at a very high level, right? And that's, we need to simulate return to sport. And I think a lot of times people don't train at that high of a level because they're afraid to. But, knowing that we can adjust, knowing that we can do those things, that we put in the work, it really allowed you to be successful.
Man, I'll tell you, there are a couple of moments through this whole process where I didn't trust you at all, and I'm like, this guy is fucking nuts. I can't do this. But loading up a barbell and squatting really heavy and doing that, and then not having that couple day after swelling or pain, it's like, whoa, all right, maybe I am ready. And even though my quad and my hamstring feels good, you can't speed up a muscle turning into a ligament inside of your knee. So you're always at the mercy of that. But
Yeah.
then, fast forward to, what was it, 7, 8 months post-op, and the first day I had my cutting drills, and it was just a simple, 45-degree cut, chop step, boom, cut. And it was such an easy thing I've been doing since I was 5 years old. But that was just such an emotional day for me. The first time cutting and pivoting on truly a new knee, and and having no confidence in it before that. And then on the other side, 20 minutes later, I felt like on top of the world and just so accomplished. And that was just such a huge win and milestone in the recovery.
Yeah. Yeah, no, that's a great point. I think that's, when we talk about confidence, what I always say is confidence comes from seeing yourself be successful, right?
Totally.
And, one of the things we talk about that, it's not about what you can do in the rehab. It's what you should be doing. And how
Yep.
that's evaluated is based on testing, not just time, right? And I think for some people, they don't recognize that it's like, oh, I'm figuring out a way to single limb jump. Like, bro, if we were to ask you to single limb jump the day after surgery, you'd figure out a way to do it,
Yep.
right? Your knee wouldn't have liked it, but you'd figure out a way to do it, right? And what happens though is that erodes your confidence. If you're doing things you're not ready for, that erodes your confidence. But for you, exactly like you said, we put in cutting and pivoting when you were ready, right? And it was still scary to start, no doubt, because you hadn't done it in a long time, right?
Yep.
But you did it after you'd been tested, you built the strength, you worked up to that point, and then you felt yourself doing it. You're like, oh shit, I can do that. That's
Yep.
confidence,
Totally.
and that's really what we want to do and what we want to build and where that confidence comes from. So I want to hit on a couple things because I don't want to run too much over an hour. We started a little bit late, so we'll go a little bit past 6 here. But I wanted to say, for you, what would be the biggest advice you would give to ACLers going through this process, if you had to give them?
Man. I think I wrote it down and I kind of looked at this mantra every day, but it's uh, pretty much you're gonna bounce back from this, stay positive and celebrate the little wins every day. Like I remember, not to be too graphic, but the first time I can like sit down to go to the bathroom without pain, that was a huge win. And it's so small in the grand scheme of this recovery, but you know, 3, 4 days post surgery, I don't need help going to the bathroom or even showering. Like those are huge milestones. And when those compound on each other, just time after time after time, you look back. I mean, I think it was 3, 4 months down the road where I was, and it's like, holy shit, I feel like I've climbed Mount Everest, man. This has been awesome. Where I'm at now, just 3 months after having your leg cut open. So I
Yeah.
think I think with every person is gonna have ups and downs in this process, and it's as long as you kind of you stick to the, I don't want to say trust the process, but non-Philadelphia 76ers trust the process, and it's such a long recovery that you can't just throw everything out of the window like the first time you hit some adversity, right? I feel like the adversity that I went through only made me better in the long run, and it helped my recovery. And I think everything else in my life I'm going to compare to this, and a lot of things are pretty easy compared to coming back from something like this. So I just think to have all the confidence in the program and everything you do and you build is for a reason. And you'll look back in a year, in 2 years. And I mean, I think we've talked about I can turn the corner going around a doorway in the house and I don't think about my knee. And 6 months ago, 7 months ago, every single step I was taking was like with caution. Oh my God, is this ever going to go away?
Yeah. Yeah. No, that's a great point. And I think one of the things you really did in this was say, hey, I'm going to set aside and dedicate the time and the energy and the focus to this and
Yep.
treat this like a big deal. I think you had a healthy understanding from friends who've gone through this, from reading, just what a big deal this injury was, right? And you acted accordingly. And you were able to say, hey, I'm going to dedicate 3 months prehab and a year post-op and put this in my rearview mirror when I'm at the end of it. um, let's talk kind of results. Let's talk about what level of confidence do you have now, and then yeah, talk about what you feel now, what you feel like you're able to do now, and just kind of yeah, do you feel like hey, my knee's not the same as it was before? Yeah, talk a little bit about that.
It's funny. That's your question. It's not how it was before. I feel like a bionic man now, but I, like we've talked about, I feel, and the results are there. I am stronger than I was back in my early 20s, working out every day.
Yeah,
And the goal for me was to get back to that level and be healthy and have my legs have no distinction between an injured or a non-injured leg. And I've made that I've accomplished that goal now.
yeah,
So it's been amazing to look back, and you're right. Like it's been just a complete dedication I've put into this and time every single day going back to January 12th, 2024 that I have thought about or done something with my knee. So
yeah,
yeah, man. I mean, results just strength wise, I'm like 100% surgical to non-surgical leg, and I had a quad graft, so I spent so much time just on the on the leg extension machine. It Getting off that leg extension machine and seeing just the symmetry between the two be the same. That was the culmination of 15 months of work. Finally, like, holy shit, I've done it and I've gotten back to where I wanted to be. And that was just such an emotional day. But like the whole process just kind of hit me at once, and just that little plate on the leg extension machine meant so much more.
yeah, yeah, yeah. And Ryan's being humble. I'm gonna 100% symmetry. People achieve that, but I got some numbers. Ryan was single leg pressing 525 pounds. He was knee extending over 200 pounds. You were deadlifting what, 330 for reps?
Uh, yeah, somewhere
Yeah.
between that and
And
350.
I think, yeah, and squatting up to, I believe, 250 for reps. And I think that, that was just an absolutely incredible, just incredible numbers. I remember talking to your in-person PT. So for those who don't know, and I would like to also say you had a quad tendon graft along with a meniscal repair,
Yep.
which is two of the harder things to come back from, right? That's not to say you choose to have those things for a variety of reasons, and obviously we supported you getting them. But a hamstring graft, isolated ACL, is going to move a little bit faster, right? So for you to achieve those things, like I said, hamstring, quad graft, meniscal repair, and still to achieve that level is incredible. A funny story: we had some testing done with Ryan's in-person PT at about 7 months post-op, and there's a statistic that I was talking about where 3 Newton meters per kilogram is terms of strength per body weight is a number that is used for, hey, professional athletes returning to sports successfully, right? Ryan was at that on his surgical side about 7 months post-op. And we were like, this PT was like, this is awesome. But we tested his non-surgical side. His non-surgical side was at 4.3. So, close to 33% more, or if not a little bit more than that. And he was like, I've never had an ACL this strong. And I was like, almost like, can we even get back to this level? And I was like, we're going to do it. He's putting in the work. And it's just a testament to your hard work, your planning, from prehab. And I think that's, your humility too, because I think recognizing, not feeling like, hey, I'm a good enough athlete, I'm a smart enough guy, I can do this on my own. I'm just going to, blow past this rehab, right? I'm gonna be able to do that. You obviously, invested in yourself, planned it, mapped out this recovery. Obviously, started with us early. Communicated every step of the way, and I think that's really what allowed you to have, an abnormal recovery, a recovery that is better than a majority of ACLers in the world. And that's not to say it can't be achieved by every ACL in the world. It just takes, to get an extraordinary outcome, you need an extraordinary effort, an extraordinary plan. And I think that's what you have. I love seeing some supporters here in the comments. I appreciate that. I appreciate those people shouting you out. And yeah, no, I know you had a great support system at home, and I know that really helped. You had a great support system in your friends. Does anyone in the chat have any questions for Ryan? I'm sure he'd be happy to take a few minutes. We're going to post this on the page, so anyone who wants to ask questions in the comments, feel free. But if anyone watching this wants to chime in and ask a question, I'll ask you one more question here in the meantime. Of just, what does it feel like being graduated from ACL? What is your kind of the rest of your workouts and plans and upcoming things look like?
Man, I'll tell you, I'm pretty sad that I can't get in that app anymore. I've spent 365 plus days in the My Coach app, and before I go to sleep, all right, what do we got to do tomorrow? Let's plan. All right, what do we do today? And and I'd love to look back on everything and just have it for memento's sake. But oh man, going forward, I mean, I feel like this whole process and going through something like this has like transformed my entire life. I want to be healthy. I don't want to go through another injury like this again. Injury prevention is probably now like my number one priority, whether it be keep my repaired knee strong or make sure the other one doesn't go through that or what have you. Eating right, making sure you get enough sleep. Everything that I have really utilized and gone through this entire process, I think is only going to set me up for further success in the rest of my life. And I think it's going to be cool to look back and here, I'll tear up 10, 20 years and show my kids these videos of like, holy shit, dude, your dad went through some huge surgery and he was able to come back. So you got no excuses. You can come back, you can be better. And it's just it's made me realize that you put your mind to something and you're determined that you can really get through some tough shit. So it's been awesome.
Yeah. No, dude, I love to hear that, and I'm so proud of what you achieved. And I think the best way to look at it is you face this head on, right? I think that's such a good life lesson and a lesson to share with your kids, and not just for fitness and rehab, but anything, right? You had a problem, you faced it head on, and what I always say is, like you said, this kind of put you on a different trajectory, which I fully support. But I always like to say that, hey, the line for maintenance and what's required for maintenance is so much lower than the line for getting to that point of fully rehabilitated, right? And for you, you reached this level, right? And you did that so you can go out and ski, so you can go out and play baseball, you can go out and play basketball and do those things. And I want you to have that freedom to do it. And because you put in the work to get to this level that, 4 days a week, 3 days a week in the gym grinding, there's a much lower bar for you to be able to maintain that, because the fastest way out is through, and you just, went right on through. You face this head on. It's 15 months of your life, long time, but it's a blip on the radar. Like you said, when you look back on it, and
Yep.
you still got a knee that's supporting you and doing everything you want with your kids 20 years down the road. So, proud to have you as a graduate of All in ACL. I appreciate you joining us. Any questions for Ryan? Feel free to drop it in the comments. We'll be doing this series on Mondays going forward with other All in ACL graduates. We got Ryan's buddy Raquel, who referred him. So another prehab story as well coming up next week. But yeah, any last words before we hop off, Ryan?
Yeah, man, truly from my heart, my family, it's been an amazing relationship, and I couldn't get to this point without you, man. And I feel like you're my best friend now after 18 months, and from one dad to another, I couldn't get to the point without you, man. And I feel like you're my best friend now after another,
Dude, absolutely. You cut out a second there. I don't know if your headphones.
Oh no. Did you catch any of that?
I caught 90% of it. You cut out at the very end where you're going to propose.
Oh yeah. Basically, you're the man. If you work with Tommy, you're in good hands. It's truly been not just a life-changing experience, man, but it's kind of showed me what I'm made out of. So I appreciate everything that you've done, and it's been a great relationship.
Oh yeah, dude. And like I said, you'll always be a part of this. You'll always be a graduate of this program. So stay in touch. We'll, always invest. We're always invested in your successes the same way, you invested in us. So
Totally.
super proud of what you achieved, and appreciate you coming on today to share your story. And yeah, I'm sure we'll have some people reaching out to you in the comments here. So
don't
we'll talk soon.
hesitate. Send them my way. I'm here to help. I've been there. It sucks, but it's gonna get better. Trust me.
Absolutely, dude. You have a great rest of your day, and we'll talk soon. Appreciate it, Ryan.
You too, Tommy. See you soon, man.
Absolutely, brother.